The bodies of 4 young women were found wrapped in burlap on Gilgo Beach.
We could have a serial killer.
You not only have a serial killer, you have a serial killer who's maintaining a disposal site.
Searchers looking for more victims of a suspected serial killer.
We found another body.
Discovery of a 5th set of human remains.
Serial killers do not stop killing. These guys kill recreationally.
A disturbing new discovery was made,
bringing the total to 8.
A killer's personal graveyard.
We got another body, and then another one.
with a 9th and possibly 10th victim.
There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
All right, we're here again, and it's episode 91.
It's 91.
Yeah, there's only 9 more episodes till our 100th episode. Holy crap, I really need to start working on that.
Yeah, and today we're going to do the show drinking coffee. Before we've done it where we were, drinking mojitos and stuff like that. But
it's a little early for
if you hear us slurping on coffee, then we're just drinking coffee. So go ahead and bust out the Java if you guys have coffee.
We're having a coffee break with 13 o'clock. Now, this show is this is kind of like a serial killer extravaganza, man, because this was actually a listener request, this case, and the more I looked at, I had heard about it. I think I summarized it a little bit in one of our 13 o'clock in minutes videos. Mm-hmm. But the more I looked into this case, because initially I was going to put this case and another case on one episode, but the more I looked into this, I'm this needs a whole show.
What's the case?
It's the Long Island serial killer.
Okay.
Also known as the Gilgo Beach Killer.
This is British?
Or the Craigslist Ripper. No, Long Island.
Oh, it's American? Okay.
New York.
All right.
And it's fairly recent. It only goes back to the mid-90s that they know of. And I'm going to apologize at the outset. There's a lot of information out there about this case. And, there's tons of documentaries. There's tons of other podcasts. Most of them try to do it in several parts just because the case is so complex and has all these, tendrils and goes off in all these crazy directions. And it's not even really entirely certain if we're talking about one killer, and there's the whole thing about the victim that was found that led to the discovery of this killer. Yeah. Maybe not even being a victim of that killer. It's there's just all kind of crazy
shit. So they don't know if there's a serial killer or if this is
there is. They just don't know how many of them there are. There might be more
2 or 3.
It might be more than one.
Okay.
So they're not really sure. So I'm going to get on.
I don't think I know this case.
No, you don't. But it's really interesting. And the more I got into it,
it's ongoing, or what years are we talking about?
Basically, most of the women that disappeared from about 2003 to about 2010.
Okay, so it's fairly recent.
Yeah, the bodies were found 2010, 2011.
Okay.
So they think the guy is still out there.
Is this in your new book?
No,
but maybe one of the future ones when you get to this.
It would have to be a future one, because
the date isn't right.
Yeah, the Faceless Villain is so far the first trilogy is only going to be 20th century, so nothing past 2000 or nothing past 1999 rather.
All right.
And the more I looked into that, so I'm going to apologize if I don't get into as much detail, as maybe some other things do, because like I said, this needs a several part thing probably, but I'm going to try and.
So you're going to give basically an overview,
sort of a summary of it, yeah.
Not an overview.
And then I was like, well, since we're doing another serial killer, another true crime, then I guess on the news segment we can do some kind of serial killer news. I figured we would probably do a Golden State Killer update. Now, we're recording this on Sunday, the Sunday before it goes up.
Right.
Now, GSK is Joseph DeAngelo. He is supposed to be appearing again in court tomorrow, but I don't know if there's going to be any more revelatory type of shit.
Right.
The most significant thing that has happened in the last few days concerning his case is that Joseph DeAngelo has now officially been charged with all 12 of the original Night Stalker murders.
That makes me think he's confessed.
Maybe, because previously, I think that when we did the show, when we did the update show, I think he'd only been charged with 6 crimes, maybe 8. But now he's been charged with the final 4, and these are the canonical original Night Stalker murders. He's been charged with all 12 of them.
I got a feeling he's negotiating with the DA for a life sentence in exchange for
because they
telling
said
his
now,
story. Basically what BTK got.
I mean, the death penalty is still on the table, according to the press. What they're trying to do now is that they had a meeting on Friday, which was May 11th, because the crimes took place in several different jurisdictions, several different counties. They're trying, what they want to do is they want to try him in one place for all of the murders. Right. But they don't know what the logistics of that are going to be. They don't know where the venue is going to be. So they're trying to meet and they're trying to hammer all of that out.
I'm telling you right now, this death penalty thing is a pipe dream. Because even if he gets convicted of it and they give him the death sentence, it takes 15, 20 years to actually implement it.
Because you get all those appeals.
He's 70-something years old. They're not going to put that guy to death. But
they probably won't.
They're going to make it easy on him. They're going to say, plead guilty to all this stuff, and you can come forth just like the BTK did, and you know what I mean, and grandstand and tell everybody your story, tell us where all the bodies are buried, and then we're going to send you to a nice, comfortable penitentiary where you can live out your final years. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do.
But like I said, they
don't want to drag the families through that shit again.
Yeah, and like I said, I really hope that they can come to some agreement on where they're going to hold the trial, because they're like, if they can't come to an agreement, they're going to have to drag his ass all up and down California, and try him in different counties for the different crimes, and that just seems like a pain in the ass. Yeah, and it just seems like a waste of money. It's like they're trying to get it all one go, all 12 crimes.
They're gonna offer him a sweet deal. I mean, biologically, he got away with it. He biologically
more or
beat
less.
it. Right.
I mean,
because there's not enough years left in his lifespan to sufficiently punish him. He should have been caught back in the 70s.
Yeah.
He should have rotted for decades in there.
That would have been nice had that happened. But
he basically got away with it.
I mean, I'm glad they got him, but,
he got away with it.
The only other news that's come up on him lately, and I'm not super sure how accurate this is, because I've really only seen it reported by, Radar Online or, the Daily Mail and stuff like that, not the most reputable publications. So, evidently, a family member of Joseph DeAngelo said that what could have spurred his life of crime or whatever was that when he was 9 or 10 years old, he saw his younger sister get raped on an army base or a navy base in Germany, by servicemen. Like I said, I don't know how true that is. I've only seen it appearing on a couple of different websites.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if they're just putting that information out there now because they think, because the defense is putting that out there, that's some kind of mitigating circumstance. He was so upset by seeing his little sister get raped when he was a kid.
That he's got to go around and rape other people.
That it messed him up and things like that. So, like I said, I don't know if that actually happened, but that's something that has also come out.
I'll tell you one thing.
The Golden State Killer.
One of our subscribers, her name's Petra. She's a girl from Czechoslovakia. She sent me a private message. She's saying, boy, you got a lot of hits on original Night Stalker video. And she says, why do Americans care about that so much? Those killers. Why is it so popular? Just because it's not popular in Eastern Europe, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I said, well, because they're monsters. They're monsters that really existed. A lot of the monsters we grew up with were kind of based on serial killers. A werewolf is basically a medieval interpretation of a serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks normal, and then he turns into a beast and he kills people. One of the first serial killers captured he claimed himself to be a werewolf, that French guy, back in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And then, you find a dead woman and she's torn up, with teeth, and you're like, oh man, that's a werewolf. An animal did that. But look, it was kind of like a man. Look at the evidence it left behind. It was a wolf and a man.
The wolf man.
The wolf man. And then you say, well, maybe it was like a Dracula. Maybe that was, human couldn't do that. Maybe that was a vampire. Yeah. And that's where that shit comes from.
I'm really interested I'm really interested though in the cultural differences between, because Americans and Europeans too, to about a similar extent, are, true crime crazy. We love serial killers. We love, we don't love serial killers, obviously, but we like reading about serial killers.
Well, it's a form of horror.
We're fascinated by their psychology and things like that. And, I didn't even think that maybe other cultures might not be
not too much into it. But America, it's a big market for horror, like horror and horror fiction. And I would probably put serial killers with horror nonfiction. It's a nonfiction version of horror.
Yeah, like you said,
it's a real monster. And it sells. Yeah, people like it.
It's interesting too because
they like to be scared. So
even people who don't like fictional horror like true crime.
Yeah.
Because I've met a lot of people like that.
Well, yeah, it's a way of being scared. People like to be scared.
Yeah.
But you're being scared of something that actually exists.
Plus,
I mean, some of these cases you tell me about, or I hear about these cases, they do kind of make you look over your shoulder. You're like, man, those fuckers are out there. You could be laying in bed one day, wake up with a flashlight in your face, and you got this DeAngelo maniac saying, get out of bed, and he's raping your wife and stacking dishes on top of you. If you move,
and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, like a damn commando.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did.
Rape commando.
Yeah,
that's what it was like. Yeah, put a cape on that bitch. Like a rape commando.
Yeah.
It's fucking like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
And
another thing too, and this was actually another piece of serial killer news, and this was sent to me by one of our Australian superfans, Gareth.
Yeah.
He sent me this on my
good old Australians.
Yeah.
Good old Australians. The closest thing to an American is an Australian. Maybe an Irishman.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He sent this to me in my Facebook messages. Apparently, Dennis Nilsen, the infamous British serial killer, kind of like the British Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Remember we did a show about him and Peter Sutcliffe.
Old dirty pipes.
Yeah, he's the one where they caught him because there were like chunks of human flesh in his drains.
Mr. Meat Pipes.
And then they found, he would keep the bodies around and whatnot.
All rotten in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah, nasty.
Well,
wrapped up in bags.
Dennis Nilsen has passed away.
Okay.
72 years old. He was still in prison. Obviously, they never let him out. They were actually, when he was first convicted in 1983, the recommendation, because like I said, the laws over there are not quite the same, and I don't want to say anything too definitive, because I'm sure some of our UK listeners will correct me if I'm wrong, but in particular cases like these, particularly serial killer cases or particularly egregious crimes, I think they do have the option of not giving them like a solid sentence, 10 years and you get out, or 25 years and you get out. They can say
indefinitely, huh?
Yeah, they can say indefinitely, or they can say at least 25 years and then we'll reassess.
Right.
We'll see if we should let him out. Because a lot of the worst serial killers over there, they usually get what I think it's called a whole life tariff or something like that. Or it will come a time where it seems like the end of their sentence, and then the judge is like, nah. Right, you know what I mean? Because it's like they have not shown any improvement. They have not shown that they're sorry. So they just leave them in there.
Yeah, kind of like they did to old Manson.
Yeah,
right.
Similar kind of thing.
They bring Manson forward and tempt him with parole, but he never made it.
Yeah, and same deal with this. Dennis Nilsen he's been in prison since 1983, and they never let him out. So he is dead now. They are investigating his death, but the article says, well, they do that for anybody that dies in custody. So don't jump to conclusions like someone beat him to death or anything like that. He might have just died of natural causes. He was 72 years old. So there's another scumbag that is no longer on the earth.
Speaking of Manson, though, he never really actually killed anybody himself.
He didn't, no.
Makes me wonder, they probably should have let him out eventually.
Yeah.
He was a cult leader. He told them to do that, but they were crazy enough to do it. He definitely should have gone to prison, but I don't know if he should have gotten well, I guess you know what? He should have, because that would be conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah.
Basically. And he was trying to start a race war. So yeah, keep that motherfucker locked up.
Yeah. You just talked yourself out of it.
Yeah, I just talked myself out of it. Yeah, keep him locked up.
Oh, there was another thing I forgot to mention in regards to the Golden State Killer. Paul Holes, who was one of the detectives who was working on the case, or he's like a retired detective that had helped out in the case previously, he actually came out in the media saying that he thought it was possible that the Golden State Killer had an accomplice, at least on his early crime, not in the murders, but early on in the rapes and the burglaries. And he's kind of pointing out that in some of the cases, the victims that survived, said that they heard him talking to someone else, or that they heard someone else's voice, like a woman's voice, or something like that. Now, that only happened in maybe 4 of the cases where one of the victims actually said that they heard him talking to someone else. So the main investigator on the Golden State Killer case now is saying, no, that's absolutely not true. We're not, this is the guy. He's the only one. We don't think he has an accomplice. However, Paul Holes is saying he thinks it's possible that he could have had an accomplice, and more needs to be looked into that. So
possible, but I would think unlikely.
I would think that was unlikely as well.
That's an unnecessary complication for him to bring somebody along.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like the type of person.
He would he'd be violating OPSEC, which is operational security. Because now you have a witness that you don't have total control over. Like, let's say it's a girlfriend.
Yeah, it's a wild card.
Yeah, you have a girlfriend, and that shit works out out for a few years and then you break up.
Yeah.
And then she's out there and she decides that she doesn't like you because you fool around on her or something, and she goes to the cops. Yeah, that's the
Yeah, she tells on your ass.
That's right. So we burglarized the house.
Yeah.
He tricked me into it, and she rolls over, gives state evidence for a light sentence or a no sentence,
he does seem like too much of a control freak to
Yeah, he wouldn't do it.
I mean, unless they were like his super, super early crimes and he wasn't really sure what he was doing.
He wasn't doing much at the scene of the crime.
But right, he doesn't seem like the type of person that would do that.
Once he got on a roll,
for those reasons.
Once he got on a roll, he would have had operational security. He thought he was old commando, Yeah.
And like I said, on one more before we get into the Long Island serial killer thing, I found this really interesting article about the preferred jobs of serial killers and how the serial killers that they have captured, they've actually distilled down what their most common jobs are. That these jobs, they have more serial killers and they're overrepresented.
Right. What do you got?
So the interesting thing, the top 3 skilled serial killer occupations. This is weird because they're very specific. Number 1, aircraft machinist or assembler.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. Number 2, shoemaker or shoe repair person.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was very strange.
Yeah.
3, automobile upholsterer.
Yeah. Okay.
Top 3 semi-skilled serial killer occupations. Number 1, forestry worker or arborist.
Weird.
Number 2, truck driver, which that does not surprise me.
That is surprising.
3, warehouse manager. Also not all that surprising.
This is just some statistical bullshit.
I thought it was like really interesting though. I thought the skilled ones were the most interesting to me. Like I said, because they were so specific. The top 3 unskilled serial killer occupations: general laborer, like a mover or a landscaper, a hotel porter, or a gas station attendant.
Right.
Top 3 professional or government serial killer occupations: 1, police officer, obviously, or security guard, 2, military personnel, or 3, religious official.
Yeah.
Interestingly, since we're talking about the Golden State Killer, who was a cop and was also in the military, Dennis Nilsen had also been a cop and had also been in the military. So there you go. There's 2 of them right there. But so the article was kind of saying that maybe the reason that, because these are all types of jobs that are not as common anymore, because a lot of them are like, skilled labor and things of that nature. And they're kind of saying maybe that's why you don't see as many of these serial killers nowadays, or they're targeting victims in a different way. They said back in the day, a lot of these killers would use their jobs, like a truck driver or something like that, to target their victims. They're like, and nowadays, not so much of that anymore. They said now it seems like serial killers are targeting their victims through online, just like our guy today. So that'll be a good segue into that. Or by online meetup groups, that type of stuff. Like less employment based and more like interest based and things like that. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting article that I just saw pop up in my news feed. So since we're talking about killers targeting their victims through the internet, this is really the case with this particular killer that we're talking about today. If indeed it is all one person or if it's more than one person. They are calling him the Long Island serial killer, or the Gilgo Beach Killer, or the Craigslist Ripper.
I think I know who this is now. I think I remember this case. This is the one with the Craigslist call girls meeting up with somebody and they never come back.
Yes.
And a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And actually, like above average looking Craigslist type hooker girls. They didn't really look like hookers from what I remember.
Yeah. I mean,
they showed pictures of them.
Yeah.
Like,
I have pictures of them.
I remember going, those are hookers?
Well, yeah, they're escorts. They're freelance escort.
Yeah, they look like normal girls.
Yeah. Well, most of them were.
Right.
I mean, they were just doing that because...
needed that money.
Yeah. I mean, I think only one of them was a drug addict that they know of. The other ones were just, poor. They were being evicted or something like that, and they needed money quick. And it's kind of sucks, too, because I think the fact that at least the 4 or 5 victims that they identified were escorts, I kind of feel like that might have contributed to the cases not being terribly investigated all that well.
Well, you have to understand, how much more difficult it is to track down who an escort has been hanging out with.
Yeah.
They hang out with a lot of people. Especially if these are the ones that I'm remembering off the top of my head. They were quite good looking, I think. Weren't they pretty good looking?
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're probably getting a lot of business, from what that's just how I remembered it.
So
I just remembered thinking at the time, I saw some news reports on it, I was thinking, this is a man of means. This is a guy that these girls will go out with.
I'm kind of leaning toward that myself.
Yeah.
And I might get into that later on, but
okay.
So
it is the same case.
The craziest thing about this case is that they might not have even found out about it if they weren't looking for this one girl that might not even have been killed by this person.
Right.
So this is how this goes. So it's May 2010. Now this girl, Shannan Gilbert, she's 24 years old. She's an escort. She has a Craigslist site and everything like that. Now, she is going out. She lives in Jersey City. She gets a call from a client named Joseph Brewer out on Oak Beach on Long Island. And the area where all this is occurring, it's these kind of remote beaches up on Long Island. There's not a lot of houses on them, but the houses on them are pretty, high end, not like mansions or anything, but it's, it's a pretty affluent area. It's like a big long highway called Ocean Parkway. And there's beaches on either side with like a lot of really brambly, like rough, terrain. And then there's just like little pockets of like, 10 houses or like take 10 nice houses and stuff like that. So that's the kind of area she's going up to. She has been an escort for a while, so she's not a dummy. She works with a driver who goes with her to all her jobs and waits outside for her.
Right.
So she goes to see this client, Joseph Brewer, and her driver's named Michael Pack, and he drives a black SUV. He drives her there, and she goes into Joseph's house. This is like right about 2 a.m.
Right. Now,
at about 5-ish a.m., Shannan calls 911. And she says, now, and this is crazy because the cops will not release the 911 call.
No.
And they will not release a transcript of it.
Red
now,
flag.
Right. But, I'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah,
some people that say they've heard it says that she sounds very frantic and disoriented and that she's screaming, that there's like a struggle or something like that. And she's saying they're trying to kill me or they're plotting to kill me. But then some other people that have heard it said, no, everyone was very calm. Now, what I can piece together, apparently she called 911 while she was still in Joseph Brewer's house. They could hear her voice. They could hear Joseph Brewer's voice. He just said something like, I'm going upstairs or something like that. They could hear her driver's voice.
Yeah.
She keeps saying, they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me. Now, she runs out of the house while she's still on the phone with them. So evidently, the 911 operator is sort of, where are you? Where are you? But she doesn't really know where she is because, the driver dropped her out there and she's not familiar with the area. So she can't really tell them where she's at.
Right.
And apparently they can't track it or they can't triangulate it because I don't know why, but they couldn't figure out where she was. So evidently she runs down the street. She runs to this neighbor's house, this old guy. I think his name's Gus Coletti or something like that. And she starts banging on his door. Help me, help me. So he opens the door and he says, okay, well, come in here and sit down and I'll call the police. And he says that she just stands there like looking at him like, no, help me, help me. Then she runs off again.
Sounds like drugs.
Well, just let me tell the story though.
Okay.
So then he looks out and she's like hiding under his boat and he sees the black SUV with the guy in it. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm a driver. I'm looking for her. Uh-huh. And so they're looking for her and they can't find her. She takes off. She knocks on this other woman's door, but the woman doesn't answer the door, but she calls the police. And Gus Coletti called the police too. Mm-hmm. So the police did not respond to Shannan's 911 call, but they did respond to the other two because they knew where they were. So They said, there's this girl out here and she's knocking on our door. She says she wants help. I don't know what's the matter. There's this guy in a car that's following her and, whatever.
Right.
Finally, the cops get out there. This is about 5-6 o'clock in the morning. Cops get out there. It's kind of dawn at this point. They look all over the place and they can't find her. She's missing. The driver, Michael Pack, he said that he drove around and looked for her for about an hour, but then couldn't find her and went home. Now, they interview the guy, Joseph Brewer. Now, the cop said he was very forthcoming, said, yeah, I hired her for the Craigslist escort. She came to my house. He's like, and then she started acting real weird and paranoid, and I went out and got her driver and said, hey, get her out of here, because she was acting very strangely.
I've actually seen girls kind of do that years ago.
Well,
usually around alcohol and clubs, and I think psych medicine.
Yeah, the thing is, I think she did have bipolar disorder. but I'm not sure if she was on any medication. I don't know if someone dosed her. I don't know. Because according to Joseph Brewer, and like I said, this guy, he could be a suspect, so I don't know how much you can trust what he's saying, but the cops said that he was pretty open about it. They said they searched his house and everything, and they didn't find anything suspicious. But he just said she started acting crazy, like, oh, they're trying to kill me, and then ran out into the night and was banging on people's doors and stuff. And then she disappears.
Right.
Now, her mom and sisters and stuff report her missing, right? Like, they couldn't. Now, the weird thing is that even before they knew that she was missing, her mom, Mary Gilbert, gets a phone call from this guy named Dr. Hackett. And he lives right around that neighborhood, only 5 or 6 houses down from Joseph Brewer's house. The doctor says to Mary, Shannon's here. I run a home for wayward girls, and I try to take care of girls, trying to get them off the street and off drugs and stuff like that. And she's here, and she's okay, and all this other stuff. Then later, she got another phone call from him, and he says, oh, she's run away, and I don't know where she went to.
All right.
So they go to this guy and ask him about this, and he says, I never called that woman. But then when they check the phone records and stuff like that later, he did call her.
He was trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
Trying to get out of the situation.
Right. So he didn't, but the weird thing is he didn't have anything to do with anything.
Was she even there?
No.
She was never there.
She was never there. She hadn't even knocked on his door or anything. So the more they look into this guy, he's actually a retired police surgeon.
Right.
Now, they said that he kind of has a history of inserting himself into investigations and crimes and stuff for some reason. And I saw this really weird, he's a weird dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had anything to do with any of the deaths or anything, but he's for sure a freakazoid. Right? He's this big kind of tubby fat guy. He's gray hair. He's kind of an older dude. He was coming out from some deposition that he had given about the case. And this crew was trying to get him. He's like, why did you say that you didn't call that woman and you did call and all this other stuff? He totally faked a heart attack, very obviously. And I was I laughed at the thing. He was like, oh, my defibrillator. He pretends he's falling down and stuff. And then the crew was like, do you need help? No, I'm fine. I'm a doctor. It was it was the weirdest thing I ever saw.
He's a attention whore.
Yeah. So this guy is kind of like a wild card, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So months and months go by. They're out looking for Shannan Gilbert. Now, sources differ. Some of the sources say that there was a police officer and a canine, and they were just out on a routine training exercise, whereas some other sources say, no, they were out actually looking for Shannan Gilbert on this part of Long Island. Now, this guy and the dog found a body, skeletal remains. And first, they assumed, well, there's Shannan Gilbert, because it's right near where she was last seen. Except they pretty quickly came to the conclusion that it wasn't her, because Shannan Gilbert she'd been punched in the face by an ex-boyfriend at so much, so she had a titanium thing in her jaw.
Right.
Right? And this skeleton did not have that. So they're like, no, this is somebody else. So then they start looking, they start expanding the search, and then they find another body, and then another one, and then another one.
Okay.
4 of them.
Wow.
And they called these the Gilgo 4. Now, these 4 girls have all been identified. They found these were found in December 2010. All 4 girls had been Craigslist escorts.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, not really. First of them was Maureen Brainard-Barnes. She was 25 years old. She was originally from Norwich, Connecticut. She had last been seen on July 9th, 2007. Melissa Bartholomew, 24. She was from New York. She went missing on July 10th, 2009. I'm going to come back to her in a minute because some creepy shit happened with that stuff. Megan Waterman, 22. She was originally from South Portland, Maine. Had been missing since June 6th, 2010. Amberlynn Costello, 27. She was from North Babylon, New York, and she had been missing since September 2nd, 2010. Like I said, all 4 of these girls have been missing all this time. All had been Craigslist escorts. The creepiest thing about the Melissa Bartholomew case in particular was that she had been living in the Bronx, and had her ads up and stuff like that. She met with a client on the night she went missing, which was July 10th. And then, after she disappeared, her little sister, Amanda, who I think was 15 at the time, she started getting calls from Melissa's phone. Except it was a guy, and the guy was saying he was asking if she was a whore like her sister, and then later he called 8 times.
Right.
Each time it would get more sexually explicit. He said stuff like, I told her what he did to her sister. I know where you live. I'm going to do the same thing to you. That kind of stuff. So the little sister got the calls, and the mom also talked to him too. They said he had a very calm, very soft-spoken kind of voice. The weirdest thing is that they put a tap on the little sister's phone to see if they could see where these calls were coming from. Every single time that this person called, they try to triangulate the location from cell phone towers. Yeah. Every single time the person had called, it was from a super, super busy area of Manhattan, in front of the Port Authority bus terminal, right by Times Square, right by the Empire State Building. So there's no way.
You could
And he was always on for less than 3 minutes. Huh. So he knew.
Right.
So that's why they kind of started thinking maybe the killer is a cop. Like a lot of people do think he is a cop. Or even though the cops are like, no, it's not a cop. It's just that so many people watch NCIS and stuff like that nowadays that maybe everybody knows that because everybody knows so much about police investigation. I don't know, though. I kind of lean toward maybe this guy is a cop. So these 4 bodies were found, and it should be noted that the body of Shannan Gilbert has not been found yet. That's so weird. These are presumably, they all looked as though they had been strangled or suffocated or something like that. Now, some sources say they were mutilated, but I'm not sure what the extent of the mutilation was, or I never saw anything where that was described. So they're thinking that for sure these were all killed by the same person who dumped them there.
Right. That's weird.
Yeah. So
it's really weird because
it gets weirder.
You have one girl who goes up missing.
Yeah.
It's a Craigslist call girl. But looking for, they discover a bunch of other bodies. In that same area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, just wait. It gets weirder.
Probably time to take a break.
But yeah, we should probably take a break because we're at the 35-minute mark. So we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we will talk more about the crazy case of the Long Island serial killer. All right, we're back talking about the Long Island serial killer case.
Yeah, and all these weird Craigslist girls vanishing and being found in weird places. It's pretty weird.
Yeah.
And what's weird about this, just for our foreign listeners, prostitution is illegal in most of the United States.
Except for parts of Nevada.
For parts of Nevada. And then out there it's confined to places like Bunny Ranch and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have places for it.
Yeah, they're brothels. They're highly controlled. So what they do is they try to skirt these laws through calling themselves escorts, where you pay to hang out with this girl like a date, but the sex is free. That's one way that they can kind of get it.
Yeah, you can get around it, yeah.
They advertise off of Craigslist. They've tried to stop it recently, but there's no way you can control this. People are going to do whatever they want to do. If you ask me, I think they have a constitutional right to do whatever the hell they want, but they try to keep this shit down to a minimum.
I definitely think they should legalize it, and, you know, I think it would make it much safer.
Make it a lot safer, probably.
I mean, obviously, you know.
I think the only downside of it, you'd have to make a bunch of rules because you don't want corporations involved, because the way Americans do things, you know, we do things like fucking on roids. We would have chains of brothels like McDonald's.
Yeah.
Where you could drive through, you have drive-through blowjobs.
They have pictures of all the people on the
and they'd be making a lot of money there, and all your daughters would want to work there. You know, that's how, it would be a corporate effort. That's the danger of America. That's America's strength.
But like I said, if I had to be a prostitute, I would rather do it like that than have to like go to Craigslist and go to some rando's house that's probably going to murder my house.
It would take over, though. Think about it.
Yeah,
you'd have Bill Gates buying huge chains of them.
Yeah.
You know, you want to keep it a small underground business, I think, but controlled.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, now the first 4 bodies they found, they're pretty sure this is the same killer. Now, these girls were all identified. And then, winter came and they couldn't really search because, you know, the weather was bad and the terrain up there is bad. I've actually seen pictures and video and stuff like that. They're like, this is the kind of place. They're like, oh, you think it's Long Island, New York and stuff like that. But 1, it's pretty remote. 2, it's just this highway. And they're like on either side of the road, they're like, it's pretty much just underbrush, brambles, marshes. They're like, it's a very hostile terrain.
Yeah.
They're like, and it's the kind of thing where you can dump a body 100 yards off the road and no one will ever see it.
They don't want to go in there.
Yeah, they're like, well, you can't. They're like, it's just too thick.
Briars,
they're like, the underbrush is too thick and stuff like that. So he's like, so it's not like these bodies just laying around and have nobody see them.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing. Okay, so they found the first 4 bodies. They still have not found Shannan Gilbert.
I wonder what happened to her.
Well, I'll get to that.
Oh, you're going to get to that? Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, spring comes, March and early April, while they're still looking for Shannan, they find 4 more bodies.
Damn.
Also, none of which are Shannan. Right? It's not funny. You know what I mean? It's like, I know I laugh, but I'm just like, just because it's amazing. So, you know, so they find 4 more victims. Then they're kind of expanding the search into like the neighboring county. And then they find 2 more bodies. There weren't entire bodies. They just found like parts of bodies.
Right.
Like they found a skull and some teeth and stuff like that. Out of the other, so now we're at 10 people, not counting Shannan Gilbert because they haven't found her yet. So these are 10 people. Now they identified the first 4. Out of the second set, only 1 of them, I think, has been identified. Her name is Jessica Taylor. She was 20 and she was from Manhattan and she had been missing since July 2003. Now, the weird thing is that they only found part of her. Her other part had been found in Manorville, New York. So they used DNA to like match those 2 up. That it had been found at a different time and she had been unidentified.
How far apart is that?
I think it's about 40 miles.
Okay, so it wasn't animals.
No.
She was cut up.
She was cut up.
Cut up and dumped in a couple different places.
Yeah. They said, on July 26th, shortly after she disappeared, they found her torso. Yeah, it's 45 miles east of Gilgo Beach in Manorville, New York. So then later on, you know, during this sweep in 2011, they found the rest of her, and then they matched it up. Yeah, they said plastic sheeting was found underneath the torso. A tattoo on her body had been mutilated with a sharp instrument. Now, the rest of the bodies, the rest of the remains, were unidentified. These included Jane Doe number 6. This was a head, a right foot, and hands. That was found on April 4th. The rest of that body had been found in November of 2000 in the same part of Manorville, New York, where Jessica Taylor had been found. So that's why for a while they thought maybe this was 2 killers, because not all of the bodies were cut up. Right. The older ones were cut up and were kind of spread out. Like some of the pieces were in Manorville and some of them were at Gilgo. So it could be that this is 2 killers and they just both happened upon this really cool dumping ground. Or it could be that because the killer had first been cutting up the bodies to kind of hide where they were, hide their identities, but then because he didn't get caught,
he got lazy and
just said, fuck it, I'll just throw them.
Right, just throw them.
So it's possible that it could all be one person.
Probably
and
one
they're
person.
Mostly kind of leaning toward I've seen some investigators are kind of like, no, we think it's 2 killers.
Probably 1.
But most of the law enforcement seem to think they're dealing with one killer. Okay, so Jane Doe number 6, she has never been identified. There was also a John Doe. He was found April 4th, a young Asian man. He was wearing women's clothing when he was found, so it's possible he was a prostitute as well.
Right.
There's been composite sketches released of him and of the other unidentified. There was also a baby doe. She was found about 250 feet away from the partial remains of Jane Doe number 6. This is a female toddler between 16 and 24 months of age. No visible signs of trauma. There was another unidentified body that was called Jane Doe number 3, or I think they also call her Peaches. They think that that was the baby's mom.
Right. She was out there working with the baby.
Because they had similar jewelry on and stuff like that. The one they call Peaches was actually a African-American woman. They call her Peaches because she had, on her boob, she had a tattoo of like a peach with a bite taken out of it. So that's what, because like I said, they didn't, she was found.
So how long had she been out there?
She had actually been found.
Because there had been flesh on the body for them to see that.
Right. Well, yeah, but part of her was found in 1997.
Okay.
And then part of her was found in 2011, then it was matched up later. Like I said,
so she'd been out there for a long time.
Yeah.
How the hell did they how did they know what kind of tattoos she had? That should have all been decayed.
Well, like I said, that part of her was found
in 97.
In 97.
Okay, so when it was fresh.
Right. There was also a Jane Doe number 7. This was found April 11th on Tobay Beach. This was a skull and teeth. Now these remains they later linked to a pair of women's legs that had been found in a garbage bag on Fire Island in 1996. So these older murders, like I said, the killer had been cutting the bodies up and spreading the pieces out.
That reminds me.
Which he didn't do later on.
That reminds me, that's from the same time as that nanny that was killed in Boston. I was in Boston at that time. That must have been around 96, 97. And they just found her upper torso. They never found her lower torso.
Yeah.
Remember that one? She was a British nanny.
Yeah. That was a famous case. I remember hearing
famous
about that.
case. I remember they were just searching the place upside down. They even questioned a friend of mine about it, a guy who was in a band named John Zwiz. He was in a band called Sleep Chamber. And they thought maybe, the cops were just, running blind. They were just asking anybody, But I had heard through the grapevine that they knew who it was, that it was her employer, but that there was no way to pin it on him.
Right. That would seem the most likely suspect.
Yeah.
But
the scuttlebutt was that she had gotten pregnant by the employer.
Yeah. That kind of shit happens a lot.
She wouldn't have an abortion. He didn't want to lose his marriage, so he choked her out.
Yeah.
He had a special apartment downtown where he was taking pictures of her and stuff. So he had a little love nest with the nanny.
So that seems pretty likely.
Yeah.
That's probably
and that the reason why she was cut in half was to hide the DNA in the possible unborn child.
Right.
But it sounded like that. They never find, they only find half and they don't find the other half. It was during that same time, 90s.
So might have been same person or more than one that kind of had a similar amount. Okay, now we're going back. So these are 10 victims, and this is not even including Shannan Gilbert. Now they did eventually find Shannan Gilbert's body about a year and a half after she had gone missing. Now, the weird thing about how they found her, she was found not that far from where she had last been seen. She was found in a marsh about 100 yards off of the Ocean Parkway. They found the body, but then a week later, they found some of her stuff about a quarter mile away. Her purse, her cell phone, her pants, and her shoes. The craziest thing was that after they did this investigation, they said that her death was accidental, that she had flipped out in this dude's house and had run off into the marsh in the dark, not knowing where she was going, and that she had got caught. Apparently, like, people that live there say, they say marsh, but they say it's like quicksand. You can't really run through it. It kind of sucks you down in there. You can get stuck in there. So they're thinking that she just ran off into the dark, didn't know where she was going, and then ended up falling into a puddle and drowning or dying of exposure. Which I'm not really sure I buy that. I don't know. The whole thing about this is so weird because now her family didn't buy it either. They said, no, we think she was murdered. What was that shit with the 911 call? Why would she have run off into the marsh when her driver was right there?
Right.
You know, why would she have taken off her pants and shoes, like in the brambles and shit like that?
Well, she was losing her mind, though.
Maybe, but they only have other people's word to go on that. And like I said, the cops won't release the 911 call, so we don't know what she sounded like on the 911 call. And it could have been that someone was trying to kill her and she was running away from them.
So she just ran out into a marsh and died of exposure. Possibly
drowned.
Or drowned in quicksand,
Except
basically.
the problem is that her body was found face up, which not usually consistent with drowning.
Well,
now the family thought that she was murdered, and they thought that the cops were being assholes. They got their own coroner, an independent coroner, to do an autopsy. Now that coroner said the results are inconclusive. However, because her hyoid bone, they couldn't find the two little horns of the hyoid bone. That's usually a sign of strangulation. So the independent coroner said, I'm not saying she was murdered.
Right.
But he's like, I'm saying it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Now, I have heard that they did a toxicology report and that there was no drugs or alcohol in her system. I'm not sure how accurate that is, though.
Remind me again, how long had her body been out there?
About 1.5 years.
Damn.
She wasn't, I mean, there wasn't much of her left. It was pretty much just bones and hair.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It seems weird to me. Like, why would she be running through a marsh, not knowing where she was going? I mean, unless she had a psychotic break or something like that. But even then, it seems kind of strange.
It seems strange that she was not strong enough to make it out of that marsh.
Yeah, and like I said, I've heard some people say, and some of the cops say this, and so I've seen some residents say this, is like, oh, it's like quicksand, it'll like, you know, it'll just suck you in and you can't get out, like someone else has to pull you out. But then in another way, I don't know if the jeans that they found, some people said it was jeans, some people said it was jean shorts, but I was like, well, were they muddy? They didn't really say. Why'd she take her shoes off? Like, did the mud suck her shoes off?
Yeah, it could. I've been in terrain like that.
Like it could happen.
In the army, you have to pass that kind of stuff. It can be quite frustrating, especially if you're in the dark. You become very disoriented. You're trying to pull your feet out, and it's sucking on you, and you lose the horizon. You get dizzy, and you fall, and it really pisses you off to be caught in that kind of shit.
It could
especially
happen.
when it's at night and it's dark and you can't see. Still, I would think that she would have had the strength to eventually make it out of there, unless maybe she just gave up the ghost. You know what I mean? Maybe she was losing her mind. She was disoriented. She struggled bunch of hours. Maybe she just walked deeper out into it, didn't know where she was, gave up hope and died.
It could be.
Could
like
be.
I said, I'm not taking a stand on that either way because honestly,
I'm an experienced woodsman. All right, so I know that if I'm in the United States and I walk in any direction long enough, I eventually hit a road. But there are people out there that don't think like that. You know, oh my God, I'm in the wilderness. There's no end to this. I'm going to die. You know, they panic. If you're ever lost, just walk in a damn direction. If you're in the United States, you will hit a road within about 20 or 30 miles max. You'd have to be up in the Washington forest to get lost for a long period of time, you know?
So, like I said, there's still a lot of controversy about whether the police are saying they don't consider Shannan Gilbert a victim of the Long Island serial killer. Like I said, they think those 10 that they found the bodies, they think that's all the same person. They think that her death was an accident. Like I said, I'm on the fence about that. It seems very coincidental that she ended up dying right there where all these other bodies were.
But I'll tell you...
and what was with the 911 call, that just seems like too much of a coincidence.
The chances of her being out there when that guy was out there doing a dump is very slender.
Yeah.
All right? You have to look at this from the point of view of a rapist. That marsh would not be a good place to rape somebody. I think she got lost.
It's possible,
and the elements overtook her.
But the fact that she was out there that night actually led to them finding all these other victims, which is why...
weird coincidence.
Even if... she wasn't killed by that killer, then, that's why her story is so entwined with theirs. Now, the crazy thing is that now her family,
it's just strange that she was also a fucking Craigslist
that's what I mean.
Call girls. Weird.
And about the same age as the other ones that were all in their 20s. Similar kind of situation, which, like I said, to me, I don't know.
This guy's such a deadly serial killer. He's killing them without even killing them.
Yeah,
They're just
I guess so. It's
just
like so weird.
He's calm,
But now her family, like I said, they were adamant that she had been murdered. They're trying to sue the Suffolk County Police Department because, they think they're covering some shit up, which maybe they could, because I'm going to get into that a little bit quickly here. But the craziest thing about in this fucking crazy story, and like I said, I know I'm not going to be able to get in all these tendrils. Mary Gilbert, Shannan's mother, later on was murdered by her other daughter, Sarah.
With the little 15-year-old?
No. That's a different victim.
Right.
Yeah, Sarah Gilbert. It was weird because I was watching, there was a 48 Hours documentary about this that came out. I think there was one in 2011 and then there was one in 2016 that was like an update. And it had an interview with them on there because they were still alive then.
Yeah.
But then later on, evidently, the daughter flipped out. She had schizophrenia, I think. She'd been hospitalized many times. She flipped out and stabbed her mom to death.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was a fucking weird, fucking crazy. And she had like a couple more sisters too, because I'm like, oh, God, those fucking, those two poor remaining girls, they must just be like, what the fuck, man? That's like the worst thing ever. Okay, so now that they've established, like I said, that maybe these 10 are the same person, what suspects do they have? So those who think that maybe this is two separate killers, they're saying, well, maybe the older 4 victims, which were actually, they were killed first, but they were found second, that maybe that was Joel Rifkin, who is a pretty famous serial killer. He's actually, he's in prison now. He went to prison in 1994, and he's still there. He was sentenced to 203 years for the murders of 9 women. Between 1989 and 1993, he's believed to have killed up to 17.
But he hasn't confessed to these.
But he has not confessed to these, because they did ask him about them, because this was similar to his MO. He would pick up prostitutes and strangle them or whatnot. So they did ask him about the 4 older bodies, and he said, no, that wasn't me. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But they're saying it's a possibility that the older ones might have been Joel Rifkin. Now, here are some of the other persons of interest. Now, this guy, James Burke, he was the former Suffolk County, which is the county where the bodies were found, police chief. Interestingly, he was actually rumored to have had many relations with prostitutes. One escort came forward claiming that he had beat her up and tried to choke her. Burke also deliberately blocked this investigation. He did not want the FBI involved. The FBI were trying to get involved.
Yeah.
And he kept not cooperating.
They would have found his connection to him.
Right. Now, this guy was eventually put in prison because he got 46 months for beating up a man who stole a duffel bag out of his car that had pornography and sex toys in it. I don't know if it was child porn. It just says pornography and sex toys. So, he beat up this guy and then he got sent to prison. So he is not the police chief anymore, but they did find evidence that he had blocked the FBI from helping to investigate this case. So some people are saying that's why a lot of people think that maybe this serial killer is a cop.
Might have been the police chief.
Maybe not this guy, but maybe this guy knows who he is, or maybe they're working together. Maybe it's some weird kind of sex ring or something.
Or it could have been that, he did business with a lot of those victims. And he thought that the FBI would get into their client list and they go, wait a minute, hold on, and he'd lose his job.
Right. So he might not have anything to do with the murder per se, but he just didn't want to be embarrassed by it. Yeah. So it might have been that. Another suspect, like I said, was Joseph Brewer, who was the client that Shannan Gilbert had gone to see, and was one of the last people to see her alive. The cops don't really think he had anything to do with it. It does seem dumb because they're like, if this is a serial killer, he's obviously very familiar with this area, but that doesn't mean he necessarily lives there. Maybe he just summers there, because significantly most of the, I think all of the victims did disappear in the summer months. So maybe it was just somebody that summered there or had grown up there and had since moved somewhere else. But they said it's someone that's very familiar with the area, but not a lot of people live in this area, so it would be dumb to dump the bodies like right by your damn house. You know what I mean? So another guy, and I mentioned this guy before, was this Dr. Peter Hackett guy, the guy that faked the heart attack, all that other kind of stuff, because they said that Shannan Gilbert's body was found. Well, her stuff was found like not far from his backyard. There's a little, actually on the 48 Hours documentary, they show like a little Google Earth thing of like where she was, where she ran to, where she was seen, and where her body was found. And it's really not very far. So it's not very far from his thing. Now, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say he was a killer, but he's for sure sketchy, and I don't know what his deal is. like why he kept calling Shannan's mom and all this other kind of stuff. It just seemed really weird. I guess they ruled him out later. He lives in Florida now, so so if he is a killer, we're in trouble because he lives in the same state as him. Yeah. There was another guy that they were looking at named James Bissett, and this guy owned an aquarium, and he was a local businessman. He lived around there. He actually committed suicide 2 days after Shannan was found. Also, they thought he was suspicious because he owned a nursery, and several of the bodies had been found wrapped in burlap sacks.
Okay.
Of a similar type, like a nursery type bag. So they kind of thought maybe it was this guy, but he killed himself. So just a couple days after the body was found. So might have been him. Don't know. However, this guy here, and this just pretty recently came out. It was only September 2017 that this guy kind of popped up on the radar. This guy's name is John Bittrolff. Now, this guy is actually a convicted murderer. He's from Long Island. He was a carpenter, and he lived in that county, and he was convicted of the murders of 2 prostitutes in 1993 and 1994. There was also a third woman who was murdered around that time, and he's also a suspect in that, and he's a suspect in at least one of the Long Island serial killer murders. Now, they know for sure that he killed these 2 particular prostitutes in the 90s because they found his semen. They matched it to his DNA. They said it's got to be him. It's like 1 in 8 quintillion or something like that it's not him. And the weird thing, the 3 women that he killed back then, they called them the left shoe murders. These were prostitutes. He picked them up. He killed them. And then he left them in the woods, like with their legs open and one of their shoes gone. Okay. Why? I don't know. But, so
he didn't have to carry 2.
I guess.
The shoe fetish.
But yeah, so also he lived in Manorville, which if you'll remember, that's about 45 miles from Gilgo Beach. However, there was another dump site in Manorville where some of the pieces of the bodies that were found in Gilgo Beach were also found in Manorville. And this guy lived there. Huh. So I'm kind of thinking
some of them may have been from this
guy. This guy may have done all of them, or he may have done the older ones.
Right.
Because like I said, for sure he did those 2 from 93 and 94 because they have his DNA. So, and they also said, his neighbor said stuff about, he was into killing small animals and, and he was kind of like a creep and everything like that. Interestingly too, is that one of his known victims, who was named Rita Tangretti, she was best friends with Melissa Barthelemy, who was one of the Gilgo Beach girls. Huh. So, and also the Melissa Barthelemy's mother said that Melissa had gotten a lot of calls from Manorville.
Right.
So it could be that this guy did all of them, like all 10 of them. But he is in prison now. So for those 2 murders. So if it is him, he's in jail. But if it's not him, then the dude's probably still running around somewhere. So, like I said, there is like so much more to this, and I didn't even get into most of the shit I wanted to get into.
It's a huge case.
It's a huge, huge case. There's like so much shit going on. Like I said, it's the whole thing with the crazy coincidence about Shannan Gilbert. Was she murdered? Was she not? Was it an accident? And just the fact of her going missing in that particular way, and that's how they found the bodies. It's just
let me ask you this. Have any new bodies been discovered since
that time?
Not
so far, no.
So this may not be an active case. It may have been something that's over with now.
Right.
Maybe the guy did kill himself, or maybe went to prison, something like that.
Yeah. And like I said, from what I've seen, it does seem like most people, if they think maybe it's a cop, maybe there was some kind of cover-up, something like that. It does kind of seem like the investigation was sort of botched. I don't know if it's necessarily because of a cover-up or being a cop or anything like that, or if it's just kind of like, oh, they're just hookers, who cares? It might be that kind of thing. I don't know.
I think that the one cop who was trying to stop the investigation, I think it's because he was doing business with those girls, and he didn't want to get exposed.
Right.
I have a feeling that the killer himself, though, is probably more like an upscale Gary Ridgway.
Well,
where he's kind of an insignificant type of guy, but he's making more money than Gary Ridgway.
Right.
And he has access to Craigslist, and he picks out good-looking girls and strangles some of them.
And like
not all of them.
Now, some people are saying that this is probably a wealthy individual, or upper middle class individual, because, and they also are saying that he maybe is super charming.
Yeah.
Or he's maybe someone that kind of cultivates relationships with these girls first, because
they must trust him.
They said some of these girls were convinced to leave their cell phones at home when they went to see him, because they said a lot of these escorts. usually won't
what I was
go
thinking.
to a client. They'll make the client come to them,
Right.
or they'll have like a bodyguard with them or
them.
something like that, just like
Right.
Shannan did.
They know the guy.
So they must know him. He must have been cultivating a relationship
He
with
might
them.
date one of them off and on for
Right,
a couple
and they come
months.
to trust him.
And then he kills them eventually.
Right. And also, it should be noted too that a couple of one of the roommates of one of the victims said that this guy kept calling her and was offering her like $1,500, which
Right.
was like way more than she normally charged. So he was like very insistent. So this was obviously a dude with money.
Yeah.
Like I said, it may be a dude that summers
Right.
there, not necessarily someone who lives there, because it seems dumb to kind of shit where you eat, and just dump bodies right there by your house.
Yeah.
But he for sure is familiar with the area, and I'm kind of leaning toward him being sort of a wealthy
Gary Ridgway type
individual or
Right.
something of that nature. All right, so I guess we better wrap this up because it's going on
Yeah,
too
it
long.
went over time.
And like I said, it's a huge case, and I tried to get to most of the salient details, but I don't know if I actually succeeded. So it's kind of rambling like it usually is. But we hope you enjoyed this serial killer extravaganza for episode 91. And remember, if you like the show, to like and share and subscribe and tell all your friends about us. And also, if you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/13o'clock, or you can go to our blog, which is 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there's a link in the sidebar to a PayPal account. Also, remember to check out our latest movie review, which was John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. I just put that up a couple days ago if you haven't seen it. Also, go to our Zazzle store, zazzle.com/13o'clock, and we have several different t-shirts and a tote bag that you may purchase. And that'll do it for episode 91. We will see you next time. Bye.
I am the serial killer. I am the bloody hand. I am the chief whore taker. I am the chosen one.